think you're muted.
Welcome.
Oh, there you are.
There we go. Hi.
Hey,
Welcome.
thank you. It's not a Zoom call until someone speaks on mute.
This is true. And it happens to me way too often. Really great to have you here. For those of you just joining us, this is Disco Creator Sessions. It's a weekly live stream that we do every Thursday, or at least we try to, where we get the chance to interview incredible thought leaders, creators, people who are really pioneering the future of learning. And I am so excited that Sarah Lacy is our guest today. I have had a total crush on Sarah Lacy for a decade. I've known Sarah for a very long time, and I've watched her in so many different capacities. As a journalist, I was a huge fan of your podcast that turned into an amazing book called A Uterus is a Feature, Not a Bug. And I've just loved watching you sort of take all these insights from Silicon Valley and create this phenomenal community called Chairman Mom, which I'm now a member of, which is super exciting. She is a superstar. She's a superstar mom. She runs this amazing community, and she is now a pioneer in the future of learning because during the pandemic, just like I did, we kind of became obsessed with learning. And so welcome, Sarah. It's so great to have you.
Thank you. I feel like I shouldn't say anything. I'm just going to sit here and like let the compliments flow over me.
Do it.
Far too kind.
Not at all.
Well, I am a very acquired taste. There are many people who hate me, so I always like to just bask in it for a moment when someone doesn't.
You know, I have to say, it's kind of what I love about you. It's this like unabashed like recognition that you're not for all, right? But you're like all for some. And you're really bold. Like you have a lot of points of view, and you're not afraid to share them.
Like women are human beings. I know, they're radical points of view.
Radical ideas, exactly. Why don't we just like kind of step back, right? You've had this phenomenal career. You were at the heart of tech. Like I actually was at the South by Southwest. I'm just aging myself.
Yeah.
Where you interviewed Mark Zuckerberg. What year was that?
2008.
2008. I was there. It was like a wonderful, like spectacular experience for me. This like little girl basically from Toronto.
Not a wonderful experience for me. I'll be honest with you.
But you've come so far. You started Chairman Mom in 2017. And so maybe just tell us about like, what is Chairman Mom and why did you start it?
Yeah. So, it was, in some ways, it goes back a little bit to Pando, which was my investigative journalism company that I started that we sold a few years ago. And, I always think if you do tech journalism well, and I'd worked at Business Week, I hosted a show for Yahoo Finance, helped build TechCrunch. I mean, I'd had a lot of different jobs in journalism. And I think when you do journalism well, you become a little bit of like the room of requirement for what the startup industry needs. And I think at Business Week, I was criticized and got a ton of hate mail and threats for being way too bullish on Web 2.0 companies because everyone was still very burned from the dot-com bubble. And then full circle at Pando, I was heavily criticized for being so mean to these bro founders that I was holding a mirror up to. So I do think I've always been sort of counter cycle, which is why I was successful as a journalist, but it's a brutal way to go through life. I mean, it's everyone hates you all the time. Lots of threats against my family, smear campaigns, people trying to put us out of business. Pando had over $400 million in baseless threatened lawsuits, including some friends of Chris Christie's. Like it is such an ugly profession that's only gotten worse. I mean, the way I don't know why any woman is a journalist, because the open attacks on women and threats to their safety have become now accepted and fine. So after, a couple decades of doing a lot of really powerful work that I'm really, really proud of, I wanted to switch gears and fight all the same injustices, but do it from a point of view of creating something better versus shining a spotlight and taking down what was bad. And I have to tell you, it's a better way to live. So with Chairman Mom, Our radical idea with Chairman Mom was that women don't wake up in the morning wanting to tear other women down, that we get baited into this by a white supremacist society, but that we, by patriarchy, and mostly by ad-based social networks that need us to keep paying attention in order for them to continue to post growth. And we believed if we had a subscription only community, that would immediately handle a lot of it. But then we have an all-female developer team, and we sat down and we looked at why do communities of women go off the rails? And what is the software that baits us into that? Because we're manipulated by software. Software doesn't. And so we looked at how to engineer that out of the system. And, we have almost 10,000 people in the Chairman Mom community. We've been around for years. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, hundreds of threads. It's a place where people go to ask, get advice on things that they can't ask anyone else about. 60% of the questions are anonymous. I think 20% of the answers are anonymous. And we have never had a single toxic, flagged, or abusive comment ever.
Wow.
In the history of the company.
I mean, I come from communities, right? Like Wattpad was like 100 million user community. That's crazy. I mean, it talks to very much the care and the love and the attention and the curation, that you put into making it a safe place and making it like a really great environment. And, to your thesis, actually people do want to support each other. People at the very heart are good.
I think it speaks to intention, because we don't do that much curation with the actual community. You don't have to apply to be a member. There's not any of this weird stuff there are with other women's networks. And we have to do actually very, very little on the curation or community. It goes to the software and it goes to the attention. At Pando, we always said, whenever a tech company or startup tells you that something is too hard, what they're really telling you is they don't care, because this is an industry that does hard things all the time. Like, you can't tell me that we can colonize Mars, but you can't find another Black woman to hire for your executive team. I mean, what it means is companies don't care. And I understand from 20 years of covering startups and being a serial entrepreneur myself that, you can't care about everything. You've got to pick and choose. And for us, creating a supportive place for women was the only thing. And when you care, when it's your priority, it's not that hard.
Yeah, I love to do it. Yeah, no, it comes to intention, as you said. And so speaking of intention, the reason I actually reached out to you a few months ago, all of a sudden I'm working on Disco, right? And I'm so excited about this idea of community-led, creator-led learning experiences. And what do I receive in my, email? This incredible course by one of my, favorite people, Sarah, New Media Masters. And I got so excited. I was like, oh, Chairman Mom is offering like learning experiences. Tell me how this came to be. Like, where did you go from, just being a community paid membership? What was the sort of thinking behind bringing learning and, these cohort-based courses into the community?
Yes. So it, like all good things from a startup, it came from our users. It looks in hindsight like this was all a master plan because it's worked out so well, but it absolutely came from our users. We entered the pandemic last year, and we were actually mostly selling to companies that were offering Chairman Mom as a benefit. And we realized that no one's doing extra nice to haves for working women right now. Working women have just been set back generationally in terms of the labor market. But what is a massive need is actually helping, working mothers. I should say Chairman Mom, about 30% of our audience are not moms. It's not exclusively for working moms. It's not exclusively for women, but that is the core of our audience.
Right.
And then the core of our audience was in massive pain like never before. So we wanted to really focus on the consumer again. And so we started doing these free weekly Zooms where we just connected with our audience and brought them, information, brought them a space, kind of just brought that connection point and community, because a lot of people were finding community in IRL spaces. And so they still kind of wanted this connection point in such an just unprecedented time. We had thousands of women join those Zooms over the course of the year. There was so much excitement around Chairman Mom. And then, I realized actually it was right at the time of the George Floyd murder. One of our members, Adamika Arthur, who's a brilliant epidemiologist, has worked at the CNBC. She's not worked at CNBC. She's worked at the CDC. Somehow I can't get out of journalism, even in a pandemic. And as a member of our community, a mom of 2 Black boys in America. And, she reached out to me and she pointed out a pretty major flaw in my thinking of Chairman Mom. I had created Chairman Mom to be a community that wasn't a time suck, that you could dip in and dip out of whenever you needed, but wasn't a big commitment, because I felt like working women and working moms are so busy, they didn't need another commitment. But what she told me loud and clear is, while that was great, the problem was that women didn't have skin in the game with one another. And she was like, look, as an epidemiologist, as a Black woman in America, as someone who devoted her life to solving inequity in healthcare, she was like, this is only going to get worse as we get closer to this election, as the economic fallout increases, as there's going to be more surges of this virus, as the racial inequity, flares up even more. And she was like, and you got to do more to get women's like real commitment to one another and real skin in the game. So she proposed actually our very first course, which was the sisterhood course. And it is a 6-month deep dive where 100 women go through the history of race, of gender, of class, of looking at everything that divides women against each other, why women get pitted against each other in society. And then we look at things like women in sports, social justice nuns, women on Broadway, women in the military. We look at all these places where women do form this sisterhood, and what can we learn from that? We're now on the end of this course and we're looking at abundance, and we're looking at self-forgiveness, and we've rooted out our internalized misogyny. And there's women hiring each other. There's women who are going into business together. There's women who are best friends. I mean, it's like the bonds and abundance that has come out of this group has been astounding. And that was our first course, and it came from our audience. And I was just like, hey, I'm a white woman in America, and like my life has hit the skids. If there's a woman in our audience who's telling me this is how you're failing us and this is how you could do more, I'm going to do it. And so I just listened to her and ran with it. And then I started seeing in the fall, oh my God, it was like this explosion of online learning, because the women in our community are doers. They're pissed off and they're going to encourage each other and they're going to hug, but they're also going to solve problems. And, they've been set back generationally. 1 in 4 women is starting a new business. Something like 40% of women are changing careers. They've got to pick up new skills and they don't have time and money to waste. They need to do it in a bro-free environment designed for them that's going to deliver a ton of value and where they're going to make lifelong, strong connections in the process. And I was like, oh, Jesus, as a journalist, I've spent my career putting together events. I've spent my career putting together content and bringing people together. And I can actually do this in a scalable, profitable, repeatable way for the group that I care about most in the world. It was like this amazing moment where every skill in my career was suddenly relevant. And unlike journalism, I could actually build a massive company. So we went sort of full in on this in November when we were like, RBG died, election, next wave of the virus, and I was like, we had this November, we couldn't market our way out of a paper bag because of all the noise in the US economy. And I was like, well, either we go out of business or we do this Hail Mary on courses. Between November and December, business grew 10x.
Hang on, just like, let's say that one more time. Between November and December, when you switch from this idea of this like lovely supportive community, but once in a while to like, okay, people need women, mothers, people need lifelong learning, made easy, designed for them, by them. Your business went from wherever it was 10x in a month.
10x in December.
In December, like
Thanksgiving and Christmas in a pandemic with a derailing election.
Wow. Well, this is why obviously we're so excited to have you as an alpha creator for Disco and to be in conversation, right? I think like our ethos is the way we're going to build an amazing, amazing product at Disco and really be supportive is by bringing a community of exceptional humans who are pioneering this new world of learning. Because in our opinion, and I think you'd agree, the old world of learning just doesn't apply, right? It's like there's a whole new wave of opportunity and need for new models of, community-based learning that, is, and it's interesting, I want to deep dive on this one, which is has live components, but is also asynchronous because we're busy, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And, I just want to say, I think you guys' approach is so exciting. And when we first connected and you told me a little bit about how you're approaching it, I was just like, oh my gosh, you're going to be a huge business, because it's not just need, it's budget. People aren't traveling for work. They're not going to conferences. In our space, women who were paying thousands of dollars for co-working spaces, a lot of those co-working spaces don't exist anymore, which is awful. I'm not dancing on the grave. I'm thrilled for the ones that do. But people have budget that they didn't have before, and they have need on top of that. It is way better to use that $2,000 that you would have spent going to a conference somewhere to actually do an asynchronous course, build really deep ties with people, learn a super valuable skill, and you don't have to leave your house. You don't have to leave your family. You don't have to get on a plane. I mean, a conference is going to cost you $2,000-$3,000 to attend. Everything else, the meals, the hotel, the plane trip, all what childcare will all cost you a multiple of that. So it's like, I think we can both offer a premium product, but it's also just a ridiculous value compared to what people have seen. But yes, it all comes back to this core of asynchronous combined with live, because we know when you do pure asynchronous, and I've done this when I've taken courses, we all have, 5% of people finish the course.
Totally.
Because you don't have any skin in the game, especially if the courses aren't priced high, because unfortunately people value what they pay for. So you just don't finish the course, and we all do that. We're busy, and it's like our audience are busy working women. They're going to cut the thing off the list that they can. So having a community and that accountability keeps people having skin in the game. The way we do our courses is we have asynchronous content that's pushed to you on a weekly basis. It's about an hour of content with some self-work, some assignments, so that you're tying those lessons directly to your life or your business or, whatever course you're taking. And then there's a community. Sometimes with our courses, there's smaller accountability groups. Like we have a daily writing workshop called Ready, Set, Write, which was a sellout course and is already one of our biggest courses. And there's small private accountability groups there. And then there's weekly office hours. And so the thing that's great about that is you have the flexibility of doing the content whenever you want and whatever fits into your life. And if you get behind, you get behind. It's not the end of the world. But then you also always have this live touch point every week, which also gives you a lot of contact with the instructor. I mean, if I'm going to a conference because I want to hear Stacey Abrams speak, how is it really different than me watching Stacey Abrams on TV? I'm not going to meet her. I'm just in a room with her. Versus if Stacey Abrams was teaching a course and I can take all of her material and then be in an hour-long office hours with Stacey Abrams. I should say we don't have a course with Stacey Abrams.
I was going to say, when's the course?
That right now. I wish we did. We don't. If someone has one, tell me, I'll sign up. But the idea is you can, you go and you have that touch point with that person and you're getting a lot of that person's time. But it's also great for the creators because they only have to create that content once. We can run it again and again. And then all they have to do is the office hours, which is the part of it that people love. No one wants to give the same keynote over and over again. It's silly to do that in an online course when you can record it once, push play, people can have it at their own convenience. But what they do want is that interaction, that connection point. And that's what's going to be your accountability to keep you up with the work. If you have paid money to do a 6-week course on anti-racism leadership with Kim Scott and Triera Bryant, what you're paying for is getting their time. So You want to get the most out of your money. So you're going to do the work so that when you show up to the office hours, you can participate. It makes it a fleeting asset, which gives people the push to do the work. And you also
Yeah.
build the bonds with everyone else in the
Well,
community.
that's what I was going to say is like, for me, what's so exciting about taking, by the way, I'm signing up for the new Media Masters course. I want you to just talk about all the upcoming courses. And I'm also so excited that you're going to be running a course on disco in the summer. So we'll talk about that as well. But it's why I want to take the new Media Masters course, right? It's like, if it was just pre-recorded content, let's just give some context. Do you want to share what new Media Masters is?
Yeah, so Leslie Gold and I created this course. So as you guys know from the beginning of this interview, I spent 20 years in media. So it's like, I know every angle of media. I've been written about as much as I've written about. So when Chairman Mom launched, I hired Leslie Gold of Sutherland Gold to do our launch. And like, I'm telling you, when you've been a journalist for 20 years, the PR person you pick is the best PR person. So that says something about Leslie Gold. That's who I hired. We paid Sutherland Gold $50,000 to do our launch. It was amazing. We got on CBS this morning, great launch, but super expensive. Not everyone can afford that. So what Leslie and I created is a $2,000 course that gives you a DIY version of that $50,000 value. It teaches you story. It takes you through all of the exercises that her team did with us. It teaches you media training, messaging, positioning, what to do if something goes wrong in a launch. And then we get really into the deep things right now, like inclusive branding, how not to unknowingly offend massive populations of people, how and when to take a political stand. Hello, base camp. And, also crisis comms. Brian Chesky of Airbnb is the guest lecturer for crisis comms, someone who's faced more crisis than anyone else I know. It is just a phenomenal masterclass that is basically a fraction of what you would pay an agency.
Oh, for sure. And I think why I was bringing that up is like, first of all, it's the thing that showed up in my mail, right? That got me, ooh, this looks interesting. So we're going to talk about marketing and how to actually market your course. But what's so interesting for me, if this was just content, there is not a chance in the world I would ever have enough time to finish it. But the idea that there's like a community of possibly other founders or interesting people, and the live Q&A to ask very specific questions of you and Leslie, it's just gold, right? It is absolutely gold. And I know
there were people in the last class who were like, oh my gosh, that 5 minutes in office hours was worth all the money. You just solved my super specific problem. There's also a Slack channel so that when people are like, hey, I need help with this now. This crisis just hit. You have people who can help you live in the minute. And I have to tell you, the people in the course were so fascinating. We had one guy who was a producer of his daughter's hip hop album. We had this woman starting this like social justice tender. We had, people building large funds. We had, just all kinds of people from large companies who were taking it. The people in the course were just so fascinating.
Yeah. And that's what we got excited about, is that like what we want to do at Disco is make it super easy for you to have that group chat and the live sessions and pre-recorded content. And, I literally think I could spend like 4 hours with you today, but we have like likely 20 minutes, and I want to encourage people to please ask questions. But let's kind of unpack this for people a little bit. I want to kind of go deep onto design and development of curriculum. You're a content genius, an expert, and now you've run how many courses? 6 courses, or?
Yeah, 5 or 6. I've lost
5 or 6, and there's a bunch coming up. I want you to be able to share those. But what's your process? How do you design and develop the curriculum? And maybe you can give some pointers to our audience who are sort of in that process of sort of how you think about it. How do you think about cohort size, the content, assignments?
Yeah, so I think all good product design, whether it's software, whether it's a book, whether it's a course, it really comes down to empathy. And so I think doing just being really close to your customers. I'm the CEO of the company, but I answer every customer service email. I know hundreds and hundreds of our customers very, very well, if not thousands. I spend a lot of time in the community. I'm very close to them. I hear what they want. I know what they want. And I think like you can build something brilliant, but if it's not what your user needs, then you're
Mm,
not going to get anywhere with it. And so, I also take a bunch of courses myself. And so I see what works and what doesn't work for me. And I have like really strong opinions. And when I used to be a writer, I would read everything. I would read so many magazines and so many newspapers and so many books. And I would be like, ooh, that lead just made me feel something. Let's step back and look at what that is. I would constantly try to decode what was so effective and what my competitors were doing well. And that's how I think about courses as well. So,
mm,
I think knowing your medium, like I learned that early on as a journalist. You want to write a book, you read every narrative nonfiction business book because you got to know your medium. So I think studying what other people do with courses and getting an idea of what works, what doesn't work, being very close to your customer and listening to them, like all those things are just like the core of it, because some things may work for our audience that like aren't good for
mhm,
other audiences. But I think beyond that, it's just I think I am really good at content, and I am
mm,
really good at pulling together content and pulling together things that may not seem to make a lot of sense, but then kind of come together and make a lot of sense. So, like, one example is everyone wanted a course on financial literacy for women, massive problem. I know people like Sally Krawcheck run two of the five biggest banks on Wall Street. I know geniuses with financial literacy, but does someone in our audience want another rich, successful white woman telling them about what they should be doing, telling them they should have started saving when they were 20? No, that's not helpful because that's not real life and that's not what we go through. Instead, I found these two amazing women in our community. One, Serafina Miller, came from parents who were Black Panthers, figured out her finances herself, has scrapped her way to financial self-sufficiency in San Francisco as a single mom by having a passion around things like how to make HSAs work for you. This other woman, Valerie Villarreal, who is a first generation American immigrant, grew up working poor, and is now a first generation millionaire in her family. Like
wow.
these two powerful women of color who had no advantages, who had a system against them, and have built this.
Right.
Like, that's who's teaching our finance course. So it's like discovering talent, it's finding that right talent, it's knowing it when you see it, just like knowing a great story when you see it, or a record producer knows a great talent when they see it. I'm really good at that, and it's really fun.
So you just hit on something. So like, I just love that, right? Because I think that's where we kind of all go wrong, right? We think it's always like the most successful person, or, the
Name.
obvious, but it's actually like, I totally love the angle that you took, and you bringing up something really important, which I've been noticing. So I'm also now obsessed with what makes the best course experiences. And that's a big part of our value add, is we want to give the community of creators, like everything we learn, we either want it to be built into our product or shared as a resource, right? Because there is an abundance of possibility for all of us around courses. But one of the things you hit on, which I think you've been very smart about, is this concept of guests. Like for every course, there are guests, and you just hit the nail on the head, which is it's all in the curation of like who those guests are. Is there any piece of advice that you can give our creators on how to approach guests, how to sort of get them to be a part of your course, how to work with people, or sort of attract them to wanting to be a part of your course experience?
Yes. So I have a lot of thoughts. So first of all, you have to pick people who are entertaining. There's a lot of really, really smart people, but if they're not engaging and not entertaining, that's gonna be a problem. This is an entertainment medium. Like, let's be honest about that. So that is one thing to bear in mind. But I think in terms of like making it attractive for them, um, my approach is we are going to do all the work. We're going to do all the troubleshooting, all the customer service. We're going to do the marketing. We are going to put the course together. We're going to build the assessments. We're going to do all of that. All you got to do is show up and be talent. You got to show up and be talent, and that's it. You have to make it so, so easy for talent, because this golden age of courses and software like you guys are building, really what that means is as a platform, we have to be adding a shit ton of value, because
Right.
otherwise Valerie and Serafina could do their own course on disco and
Mm-hmm.
keep 100% of the money. So what are we
Right.
doing to earn the lion's share of that money? So we
Mm-hmm.
can't make a bunch of asks of them. We have to make it as easy as possible. You know, we had a major glitch with one of our courses this past weekend with the videos. I spent my whole weekend swearing at my computer and screaming over this, but the talent didn't, because that's not
Yeah.
what you do. It's like when you're doing a conference, your talent shows up, they do a keynote, and you make it as easy for them as possible. Treat people like talent. Unless you're giving them the bulk of the revenue, treat
Right.
them like talent. And managing talent is a really specific thing, as anyone who's been in a creative business knows. And all talent has quirks. Love
Mm-hmm.
all of our course programmers. All of them are a pain in the ass in a different way, but it is my job to make their life as easy as possible to get their brilliance to our users. And it is my job to absorb every bit of that pain, every bit of that stress, every bit of what it's always something different with each person that makes it a challenge. But that's because they're doing their job. They're being brilliant. They're being talent. They're being genius. It's my job to get that in a consumable fashion for people.
Oh, that is so good. Like I can't, it's such a good framing for so many people. How does it work when you say that? So do you actually sort of interview them and then design the curriculum and design the content, or is it sort of dependent on the guest? Like some
It's
of them already
dependent.
have a curriculum. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's
got
dependent.
it.
Sometimes they come up with the curriculum. We kind of talk about it together. But then there's some people like Lisa Cron, who's doing a course that's coming up in June that is so brilliant and I'm so excited about. It's basically about how to use neuroscience to change anyone's mind about anything, because it turns out
Right.
facts don't do that. And she has this brilliant book, Story or Die, that just came out about this. This is something for if you're trying to like sell to people, raise money, run for office, convince your teenager not to text and drive, like any these things where we can't seem to change someone's mind. Like this has been the hallmark
Right.
of the last 4 years of our world. This unpacks why it doesn't work the way we've been doing it, how to do it better. Brilliant course. Lisa is absolutely brilliant, best-selling author, one of the best story coaches on the planet, from movie studios, you name
Mm-hmm.
it, superstar. But she has a very hard time distilling this genius into 45
Right.
minutes. So like I've spent a lot of time like going through a book and highlighting stuff and being like outlining it and being like, this is what you need to do here, this is what you need to do here. That's my value to her, because like that's the thing, I have to bring value to each of these people. It's
Mm,
like, why does Lisa Cron need me? And so
right.
my job is to find out what that value is with each person. So sometimes it's distilling their brilliance into curriculum. Sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
bringing them an audience. Sometimes it's me saying like, hey, I know you don't think you're an expert in this, but you are an expert in this, and this will be a best-selling course. It's different with every single person, and that's why it's really fun. But I
Yeah.
just look for how am I earning the right to have this person on my
Yeah.
platform? Because the creators we have could be, I mean, Kim Scott has been a CEO coach to Jack Dorsey. She created Apple University
Sure.
with Steve Jobs. Like, these people don't need us. They don't need us. So why are they all doing courses on Chairman Mom? Because I'm figuring out, how are we of service to you, and how are we that last mile roadblock, whatever it is, to get that genius out to all these people. And that part's just really fun.
And you're so good at it. So I'm so grateful that our community gets to benefit from you. And I just love what you said, which is like, how do you add value, right? If the whole world would just kind of look at that framing, the world
Yeah.
would be a lot better. I know there's a couple people who may want to ask questions, and if you put your hand up, I'm happy to let you join us. But before we go there, I kind of want to just really take 5 minutes to do a deep dive on marketing in particular, because this is also a game where you really, really excel. Can you give us just a couple tips on how you think about marketing courses? Like, what is your process for marketing a course?
We've learned so much on this. And I will say, if you want a masterclass on marketing, the course that is not a Chairman Mom course that I took, that is out of Canada, that is brilliant is Grow Class. It is so
Sarah is,
good.
yes, we're
So
talking to
good.
Sarah.
It's
So
just absolutely brilliant. And so I highly, highly recommend anyone who's going to be in the course business, go take that class, because it's essentially what I described for new media masters for growth marketing. And we will never offer a marketing class because she's already done it so well. I just want everyone to go give her money if that's what you need. So a couple things. I think that social does nothing. I think social is a waste of time. No one is going to come and spend $600 to $2,000 on a course because they saw it on TikTok. It just doesn't work. Where we have invested almost all of our time that by far converts the best is email. Email marketing is just sort of everything. And you have to create really, really good content marketing, email marketing. That's everything. We've just, with our last 2 courses, started doing webinars, which is how almost everyone sells courses. We were already doing free Zooms, so it was a little hard to work our head around what exactly the strategy would be with us. We did it for our financial course, Boss Up Your Financial Game first, and it converted as well as email, which was amazing. So now we have a second really, really good channel. The thing that's great about a webinar is if your hosts are squeamish about being too promotional to their friends and networks, then their ask can be, come to this free webinar, not go pay this money. And then the webinar can convert them. So it gives you an easier way for the hosts and the talent to push to their communities, if that makes sense. That was a big benefit. But I think the key is you've got to find at least 1, hopefully 3 channels that really work for you, and then just go deep on those channels, because there's going to be a lot of channels that don't work for you. And that's our challenge right now as a business. As we start to do multiple courses a month, we know we can reliably sell out 1 course a month. Now, as a business to grow, we need to start selling, 2, 3, 5 courses a month. And we need more channels than email, because it's too much to one list. It's too much, because it doesn't scale the same way. So our challenge this year is to find 3 marketing channels that work. So we know email works. We know webinars work. We're trying to figure out what that 3rd channel is. I think affiliates should work, because we have an audience of people who love what we do.
Totally.
Your affiliate would be like anywhere between $50 and $200 per sign up. You don't have to have a big list for that to be meaningful really, really quickly. We have not been able to crack it yet. And so we're still working on that one. We're working on leads. It's just hard. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm talking about marketing
I was just going to say
90% of my job.
It's great. One of our other alpha creators is a phenomenal course creator named Jan Keck. He'll be on our series as well. But he was telling me that up to anywhere between 30 to 50% of his signups are now referrals, based on the way he's designed his referral program. So I will invite you.
I would love to see, because it's like, I know that is there, but we haven't unlocked it yet. But I will say, this is the thing. This is the reason that we just we had a ton of investor interest all of a sudden. In 5 months, more than 25% of the people who bought a course have bought at least 1 more course. Several people have bought 4, 5 courses in 5 months at a relatively high price point. So I think one thing that we have that a lot of other course businesses do not have is we have cult-like repeat buying, because the community is so good and the experience is so good. So that helps a lot. Like we finished Ready, Set, Write, which is our daily writing practice one. 30% of people wanted to sign up for the next cohort of the same course.
Totally. Wow. That's huge.
Ridiculous.
That is totally amazing. Is there any guidance that you would give our creators on landing page design as you think about the funnel and sort of really driving to purchase? What have you learned?
Yes. I would say just take Grow Class. I literally just every single thing Sarah said, I wrote down and we follow. There's a lot of tips, make the call to action, very inclusive language. Make sure you're saying, talking about them, not you, testimonials, media logos, proof points, validation. You've got to have, and again, it goes back to empathy. You've got to be in someone's head. What is going to make them click that button? Because there's a lot of people who are like, I want to be an anti-racist leader, but is that something you're going to prioritize right now and push the button. Finding that language is so crucial. And that's also where email marketing helps, because email marketing allows you to constantly A/B test that language and tweak it and iterate it and figure it out. Oh, I have an amazing tip. Oh my gosh, this is the best tip I'm going to give anyone. And this came out of a module of New Media Masters. We had this phenomenal woman do a course on content creation. She goes on Reddit threads and Facebook groups where her community is and listens to how they describe their problem. Because there's phrases that will pop up again and again and again and again. And the example she gave was for a meditation company she was working with. People kept saying, I'm going to stop putting myself last. And if you can echo back your customer language, they will convert. That is like the gold tip I got out of that module in New Media Masters that I will give everyone for free. And I've done it. When I'm stuck on marketing language, I like to write my landing page copy and marketing emails. I go in this, like, I have a 1973 Airstream at our Palm Springs house, and I go hole up in there. I listen to Lizzo, and I just have a martini and write marketing copy for courses for like a whole evening. And when I get stuck, I go to Reddit threads. It's the only use case of Reddit I've ever found in my life. I will go to Reddit threads and I will read how people describe their problem, and it's a gold mine.
That is such good feedback. I mean, your whole energy around how you are successful is listening and adding value. You know, if I'm to like sum it up, journalist. And I think it's so helpful. I would love to keep going. But I know we have to close this up really soon. And thank you to so many people for coming. We are so excited to have you as an alpha creator at Disco. We cannot wait for you to use our product and just all the value you're giving us and our community on just being a pioneer in the space. So much gratitude.
Well, and I have to say, I'm so excited about using your product because right now we have our courses, we have a Slack channel, we have Zooms. Like, I love that you guys pull it all together. And if we were starting from scratch today as a creator, if I were doing this as a solo creator, I wouldn't mess around with any other platform. I would exactly go to you guys. I think the approach is just brilliant and what the market needs.
Oh, thank you so much. And we can't wait to have you using it. And you're already adding so much value because you're of service. It's just like everything you're saying is so helpful. I want to thank everybody for coming. Let us know what you think of these. We want these to be as valuable as possible.
I just want
lots
to
of people
to this question.
Yes.
So daily newsletter. Whoa. That is the single best way to build a community. I did it for 3 years, and that's why we rapidly made so much money. Daily newsletter, daily news. It also means email, like you get this email credit. So people open your emails, you don't get in spam folders. Single best thing you can do. And another tip I got out of this content creation module in New Media Masters, do something 20 times before giving up. So even if it's not email newsletter, maybe it's Instagram Live, do it 20 times before you give up.
Amazing. So everybody, like, please, I will post this on our Twitter. People will have all your links to your amazing courses that are coming up. And we will have a recording of this and likely a how-to guide because this content is so amazing. And you know I'm going to ask you back, right? Because we've just like cut the surface.
I can talk about this all day long. And honestly, I don't think it's zero-sum game. I think so many groups need so many courses, and I'm so happy to pass on what I've learned.
No, really, really appreciate it. For those of you, I want to let you know, you should join too, Sarah. Next week, we have an amazing woman, Gwen Elliott. She is the course producer at Shopify, and she runs an incredible business designing. I think she's designed 50 courses now.
Wow.
So she's just like super. She's an instructional designer. She is going to tell us all about how she does that. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Sarah, you're amazing. I can't wait to join New Media Masters. And I'm just so happy for you. All right. Have a good one, guys. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.